Burnout is the iconic racing game that was developed by Criterion Games for the PlayStation 2 in 2001, and this game would be the start of an iconic series that would be established across future generations of gaming consoles, with multiple sequels being added to not just the PlayStation 2 but the Nintendo GameCube, the Nintendo DS, PSP, and with later iterations with Burnout Paradise being seen on the likes of the PlayStation 3 and even remastered editions of that game on modern consoles with the likes of the PS4 and PS5. And the series itself is considered a phenomenon amongst racing fans, and Criterion Games themselves would eventually be acquired by Electronic Arts after Acclaim Entertainment went bankrupt during the mid-2000s, and Criterion Games would then go on to create many of the later Need for Speed games, most notably with the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit remastered edition that was seen on the PS3, and even with the later adaptation that was seen on modern consoles, and with 2012's Most Wanted, and even most recently with Need for Speed Unbound. As the one thing that Criterion managed to always get right with their games was the perfect balance of gameplay styles, speed, handling, physics, and just general alright fun that the games represented. And the Burnout series was proof that that was possible. The first Burnout game, while successful in its own right, it was its sequels that would really skyrocket the series into massive success. You had Burnout 2 Point of Impact, which was an awesome game in its own right, but it would be Burnout 3 that would help to revolutionise racing games, but it's also considered to be the best Burnout game in the series, as the game would take a very different approach where when you're racing you had to also take out opponents by crashing into them at high speeds, which in turn would give you rewards based off the amount of takedowns you could take in a race, and this would help you to unlock additional features. But where the first game started, it started pretty much from humble beginnings, and it was pretty much an entry point to showcase what was possible, as it is an arcade racer at its heart, but it was one of the very few games that would have taken inspiration from earlier likes of PS1 games such as Destruction Derby and many other racing games, where the game not only focused on racing and high speed racing, but where Burnout differed compared to many other racing games and was similar to Destruction Derby was its crash physics and the damage physics. When you crashed a car at high speeds, the level of damage and realism that would be seen on screen was quite incredible at the time, and it just had a lot of really cool features. And again, these modes would be later adapted and improved upon with the later sequels. You had a variety of different modes, from single player campaigns to multiplayer modes where you could play against your mates in split screen, but you also had a crash damage mode that would later be seen especially in Burnout 2, where you would have to crash into multiple lanes of traffic, and the goal was to cause as much damage as you could and rack up the most amount of money due to the damage. So the original Burnout game really set the foundations for what would become an iconic and legendary series of racing games moving forward. And while the Burnout series would pretty much end with Burnout Paradise, even though there is a remastered edition that was added to the likes of modern consoles with the PS4, many of the elements that is seen in those games would be added more so to the more updated and more modern Need for Speed games also. So it's just a really good series of games in general, and for its time it was one of the best racers on the system that was only bettered by its inevitable sequels, as the game is just very, very popular and it's just so iconic, and it's still a fun game to play. Even going back to playing the game when recording this video, it's still a blast to pick up and play because the sense of speed that it gives you is incredible. It's very, very fast paced and it is challenging, so you have to have your wits about you and you have to know where to drive, and you have to really just be dependent on your own skill in order to get through the races, because if you make too many mistakes you will be crucified, let's just put it that way. But that just adds to the fun element of it. It genuinely is a fun game, and for a very early racing game it's a really good look back over what was possible even back then. And these games during the early days of the PS2 were proven that games were going in a different direction, or a good direction, in terms of the visual appeal, but even the handling characteristics and dynamics, as things were starting to be a lot more refined and fleshed out compared to previous generations. So they were starting to find unique balance in terms of control systems for cars. So generally it just is a really fun game. It is a classic classic. Again, the sequels would be better, but it doesn't take away from the iconic presence that the original game had, and this is the game that pretty much started it all for the Burnout franchise. So I would highly recommend, if you're a fan of Burnout, go back and play this game, or if you've yet to experience any of the games in the Burnout series, try out the first game yourself and see what you think of it, and then gradually move on to the sequels. You'll definitely have a lot of fun with it. It generally is a classic in all regards. So I'd love to know your thoughts on this iconic first entry in the Burnout series, and what do you think of it overall? Do you enjoy these arcade style racers, and did you have a lot of fun with them back in the day? I'd love to hear whatever stories you do have of this awesome game, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be updated of future videos. And if you would like to see more content on the channel around similar types of racing games, also seen on the PS2, you can check out this playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action, and I will see you all in the next one.